Welcome back, Astro listeners, to StarLady Soul Reader Network. This is MediaMonk, and as usual, I have our shining star of the zodiac, StarLady. Hi, StarLady.
Hello, MediaMonk.
And, of course, we know StarLady is indeed Kim Marie, the Managing Director for the Evolutionary Astrology Network. EAN continues to provide the finest EA course materials for anybody interested in studying evolutionary astrology, and we also provide a certification program for professional astrologers. Always call 1-605-348-5111 to ask about the course, talk to us about some other things on the website, and or to schedule your reading time with StarLady. So with that, on this full moon, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, MediaMonk. We are recording this the day before the full moon of Aries on October 17th at 24.5 degrees Sun, Libra, Moon, Aries. And probably the biggest thing about the full moon chart is we've got a grand cross going on with planets, as well as a grand trine. Our grand cross is in the cardinal signs. Our grand trine, did I say that? Is in the water signs. So, hey, our full moon of Aries is hanging out with Chiron retrograde. It has just passed its opposition to the sun, which is the highlight of Chiron retrograde. So we either have been in midst of some healings or perhaps a little bit of anger issues that we're needing to process through. Part of this is because Mars in Cancer is approaching an opposition to Pluto in the last degree of Capricorn. They actually have their opposition, Mars to Pluto, 2 days before the presidential election in the U.S., November 3rd, 2946, Mars Cancer, Pluto Capricorn. And in the world of evolutionary astrology, Pluto is the unconscious desire nature of the soul to separate, to exist, to become, to return, to know why we are here, and have our next merging with universal source on our spiritual journeys, however that is for us. Mars is the conscious desire nature of the soul, that instinctive desire to become. And as Mars finishes up its first passage through Cancer, it retrogrades halfway back to 17 degrees Cancer with its retrograde in December, January, February. Mars in Cancer is square its natural rulership of Aries, where Moon and Chiron are hanging out, and it's cardinal energy. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Moving forward till we reach insecurity, and then going back till we reach that security that we know from before, till we're bored with it again, then we go forward. And so that's how cardinal energy learns. Mars, especially ruling Aries' first house, is action-reaction. Mars learns from feedback. And so we're always instinctively out there becoming, but if there was no feedback, Libra polarity, we'd just keep going out there in the universe till we ended up somewhere way, way, way far away in the galaxies. And so the cardinal energy, all the planets have their opposite signs, so they all get their feedback. But Mars is the one that teaches us this from its rulership of the first archetype. And so Mars is feeling a lot of emotional tension. It's not always comfortable in Cancer. Cancer is that emotional animation withdrawal. Something triggers us emotionally, we go within, we have to find a new equilibrium, a new level of emotional self-reliance, and then we animate and come back into the world till we're triggered again. And Pluto, in the last third of the last degree of Capricorn, being freshly direct October 11th, here is I've been saying, the last gasp of that consensus energy, Capricorn. Capricorn can be individuated and spirituated as well. But that consensus energy that, Capricorn rules, and Pluto in, its final few weeks, its final month, actually, it goes into Aquarius for the next 2 decades, November 19th. Pluto at the end of Capricorn, coming off that last retrograde for 200 plus years in Capricorn. It's like, wait a minute, I'm in charge. As that ability to have the control of everything is just slipping right through its fingers. Because if there's one natural law in the universe that we will all participate in, it is the law of evolution. And with this cardinal grand cross, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes we feel like we're evolving, and sometimes we feel like we've went backwards and de-evolved a little bit. And that kind of can almost describe the USA presidential race. I haven't spoke a lot about it. I did to the Jeffrey Green Association of Evolutionary Astrologers. They had their conference. This was my subject. Try to give you a little bit of, recap, which is somewhat of what I am doing right now. Again, we've got a country for July 4th charts, which have planetary aspects whereby in our first 200 and almost 50 years of existence, we include and exclude. You're tired, you're hungry, you're poor, and build a wall, as I say. That energy can be really emphasized on this full moon. Which choice are we going to take as we have this grand cross, 2 oppositions, 4 squares or more with Moon and Chiron taking place. And so we're really starting to feel this tension build up. Now, I've not really spoken a lot about politics on the podcast for a while, but I thought as we have this full moon of Aries and the new moon of Scorpio just before the election, I will. I have went back and forth. I got my own, processing going on. If you're paying any attention to the polls out there, this is a race that is just neck and neck, and Trump's ahead, then Harris is ahead, and you can kind of drive yourself a little bit crazy. One of the things that's been happening in the most recent elections that our country has nationally every 2 years is that the polls haven't really been so accurate anymore. And a lot of it is because we don't have very many landlines. We all have cell phones. And if you're like me and your cell phone is just bombarded when you never signed up for one thing, you can just shut out. And so it'll be interesting after this election to see what really takes place with the accuracy of polls. MediaMonk and I did our daily walk before this podcast, and I was just going, last week I was just resigning myself. Okay, you just need to process, Scorpio sun. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. You need to process, how would your world be if Trump wins, and so I went through a whole lot of emotional stuff last week, just kind of moving myself through it. And then I just so happened to have backed off from media because we were having a glorious camping weekend on our wedding anniversary, and we had no cell phones, towers, and I just detached, and I just kind of got in peace with myself and looking at some of these larger patterns, if he does win, there is something karmically in this country that we are going to have to deal with that he represents. But I also came away from my stepping back of media and going, I've been saying Trump has a polarity of natal planets in Gemini, Sag. Jupiter just went retrograde in Gemini October 9th, the day before Pluto went, or 2 days before Pluto went direct. Jupiter retrograde in Gemini is going over Donald Trump's Uranus, North Node, and Moon. Uranus and North Node in Gemini 3 times, okay, end of this year, next year. It's opposing his South Node in Sag and Moon in Sag 3 times. And I've said from the beginning of this year, I said when Jupiter goes retrograde late this, early fall, I guess it is now, I just said he's going to have some mental stuff going on. And he also has transiting Saturn squares Uranus 3 times. And he has transiting Uranus squaring his Mars 3 times. So he has three forecasting trends with Uranus. And Uranus rules the brain, literally, in EA Health and Wellness. And so I've been saying from the beginning of the year that I just think this gentleman is either going to have a brain event, almost had an assassination attempt on his brain, or, if he doesn't have an acute event, he's just going to really, that Jupiter retrograde in Gemini distortions, it's not all of us, we're all experiencing this retrograde cycle, but the distortions of that is the mind just losing touch with reality. And this is what we see going on, and it's finally starting to break in the news. So, and our state governor, Kristi Noem, was the one who listened to music with Donald Trump for 40 minutes, looking like her cute little Barbie doll on stage, wondering what to do if you watched any of that. Don't mean to digress. So stay tuned. I think we're going to see more exposures of, do we really want this type of gentleman running the country for 4 years? And then, turning it over to Vance, who I won't even go into as, the slick pathological liar, much better at it than Donald Trump is. But I also got from my reflections, I really do have faith and hope that there is a whole silent majority that are just going to say, we want sanity. We may not agree with her policies, but we want sanity. I don't have the time. You can go get the lecture from jwgaea.org if you want to catch up with my lecture, if you want to. There's a lot of aspects going on in Kamala Harris's chart, and a lot of them are just breakthrough aspects. And EA's never done the traditional squares and oppositions are hard, trines are easy. It all is an evolutionary context unique to each individual soul, each individual situation. She's got a lot of energy helping her, moving her forward. Stay tuned. We'll see. Maybe like me, if you're a little amped up about it, go take a nice walk in nature and get yourself in touch with nature, because you're going to be okay no matter what. But I'm still putting my faith and hope that we're going to move through this, even though I'll be talking on future podcasts the fact that while we have Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, its opposite sign of rulership, after the election, we're going to have a Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. Mercury left brain, Jupiter right brain. They're going to be in each other's signs of rulership. Talk about the chaos. I do expect wherever the Republicans lose that they're just going to do all the fraud chaos they can do, all the elector chaos that they can do. It's just, avoid reality, I guess is what I'd say. So, point is, this full moon, as we are looking at it a few days before, a few days after, especially the 2 days that moon's in Aries, we're seeing that tension. We're seeing that tension between tomorrow and yesterday. Cardinal energy, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Do your best to make your own sun in Libra peace with yourself, peace with others, peace with those all around you. The other thing that we have going on in the midst of this full moon chart is we have Venus made a recent waxing trine to Mars, and they're both going to be in orb of a grand trine with Neptune retrograde in Pisces. So again, we've got a trine going on in water, and it involves Venus and Mars. Mars has just moved into its shadow. Let me get you that date for you right away. I think I have it in my notes. Mars went into shadow October 5th, pre-shadow Mars, October 5th. That's when it reached 17 degrees Cancer, where it's going to go stationary direct the end of February. But the point is we're going to have a Mars retrograde December, January, February. We're going to have a Venus retrograde March and April. Venus retrograde is Aries, Pisces. Mars is Leo, Cancer. So they're both going to go retrograde in fire signs back to water. And right now, while they're making this trine to Neptune retrograde, we can reach emotionally deep with whatever's going on for us in our personal lives, in our personal relationships with people. And, yes, Venus, Mars definitely rules intimate relationships with another person, or two, if that's your choice. But it can also have an impact on personal relationships with other people in our lives that we're close to that may not be our significant other. And Neptune, having its last full retrograde cycle in Pisces this year, 2024, it's digging deep to throw off old wounding, old distortions of beliefs that we have taken on over lifetimes. And so just in general, Neptune retrograde in Pisces, and Saturn's there too. How is your relationship with source energy going in your world? I have a couple of things that I always say about universal source. And this is just my words, okay? You can use your own words for source energy. I always say the relationship you have with God, Goddess is identical to the relationship you have with yourself. And the relationship you have with yourself is identical to the relationship you have with God, Goddess, source energy. They are one and the same. They're an inside job. And so, as Neptune's retrograde trying to throw off old relating patterns of what you believe in your religious, spiritual journey, what are you opening up to? And as you reconnect with source energy, then how is that extrapolating out in your personal world with Venus and Scorpio and Mars and Cancer? What are the emotional patterns surfacing? What are the emotional expressions that you would like to make with others? And by the way, we have Sun going into Scorpio October 22nd. Venus is leading. Venus is an evening star right now. By the way, Mercury became an evening star October 15th. We're recording this on the 16th, so you can watch Mercury climbing in the evening sky for another month if you would like to. But the Scorpio mantra I created many moons ago, I metamorphose myself with evolving self-reliance. I metamorphose myself, Scorpio, with evolving self-reliance, polarity Taurus. Venus has been going through some of that. Now, Venus and Scorpio, it can bring, a marriage ceremony. It can bring the renewal of vows, but it can also bring, I want a divorce, I'm done. Mars in Mars in Cancer is really having to deal with some of its insecurities. And if there's any of that showing up, it's going to come back through Mars's retrograde early next year. So really make an effort to process through those emotions right now. It can give you foresight for this winter, and it can maybe help shift a few things for you. Venus is going to move into Sagittarius October 17th to November 11th. And, Venus in Sag is going to almost turn into the social butterfly, like it likes to do in its rulership of the sign Libra. Venus in Sag can turn into I'm right, you're wrong. It can want to have discussions about big pictures. But Venus in Sagittarius can also, look for a little lightheartedness, a little, especially if it's like, okay, I think I've got things kind of put together. Oh, okay, that kind of makes me, feel okay. All right, how do I want to interact with the world? How do I want to, be in the world? And I'll tell you what, if you have, I don't live in the type of area where you can do this kind of thing, but if you live in a battleground state or you live in an area where there is a local issue that you can get out there and be proactive with, Venus and Sag can I want to use the word proselytize, but it can also be the educator. It can be that teacher. It can show others the truth if they want to get up and out into there. Now, Mercury's going to follow along after this full moon in Scorpio, and it's going to make, its trines, first to Saturn, and then it's going to touch in with a trine to Mars and a trine to Neptune before the end of this month. It'll make a grand trine in the water signs following Venus. It'll make the grand trines with Mars and Mercury right around that Halloween time period as we're getting closer and closer to that election. Who can be emotionally persuaded and who is emotionally entrenched? Stay tuned. We don't have long to wait, although, again, some of the states, it's not going to be ballot counts real fast. We have red states trying to procrastinate it, blue states trying to speed up early counting. We'll see how all of that goes. All right, I might take a little pause here for a moment. MediaMonk. Comments.
Well, I
always do this to you.
You put me on the spot.
You got me used to it by now, honey.
What I'm recalling is this is a great time of the year for me because we do enjoy doing our little walkabouts in the evening. And whenever you can take these transits and let's just say the more mental side of astrology and throw them against the backdrop of actually watching Venus rise in the evening sky, or perhaps, like you just mentioned, Mercury in the sky, it just becomes much more powerful and personal for me.
Most definitely. We love it where we live. we're not early morning people, so we always watch the evening stars. I'm not very good at pointing out the morning stars, although I always try to do so with Venus. And Venus won't reach its highest spot in the sky, which is called elongation east, until January 10th of 25. So we're going to watch Venus rise through, what is that, the next 3 months or 4 months? So it'll be a beautiful time to watch it in evening skies. One last thing that I didn't point out, we have 5 planets retrograde. So we had Pluto go direct, but we had Jupiter go retrograde, and I include Chiron. So outside of Pluto, we have the next 5 outer planets retrograde, and that, creates that annual cycle of rebellion almost. And so to me, in some ways, that's also some hope that just as collective levels, we want to throw off the past, throw off old patterning, personally and collectively.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We've certainly... Go ahead.
I was going to say, any political comments, MediaMonk?
No, I'll leave that up to you. I don't want to have egg on my face because number one, I do agree with your statement about polling these days, and I do know that there's a lot of more political shifting underneath the hood of what any of us can see. And I'm talking about in our podcast groups, our groups like we have here, other places that get information from non-traditional sources. And I think that's going to be maybe the byline of the outcome of this upcoming election.
Okay. Stay tuned, everyone. I'm going to use MediaMonk's words. Thank you for listening, and have a beautiful journey from the core to your soul. Is that what you say, right?
Yeah. We'll see you next week, everybody. Next new moon.
In 2 weeks. Next new moon. Adios.